Welcome back to the Nerdy South, where each week we give our initial reaction. Well, wait a minute. No, we won't be giving our initial reaction for Loki this week because Loki's over. And last week was the season finale, and it was fantastic. And we have an episode completely dedicated to that we posted last week. So go back and watch that. This episode we're going to be talking about Black Widow, and it came out in theaters a couple weeks ago, and it's very exciting. With me, as always, is Jeremy and Grayson. I am Joey. Now let's get down and nerdy. Have you all seen Black Widow yet? And if you have, what did you think?
I have, yeah, it was great. I mean, it was it was weird, because it was supposed to be the first you know, property in phase four. And because of the pandemic, it came out after three series. So it was different. But I thought it was a strong middle of the road MCU movie.
I agree. I texted Jeremy because I knew like he might have seen it when I got out, and we kind of agreed on that. It's just kind of middle of the road, but it's good. It's a good property. It's exciting. It's just that and I'm going to say this because I don't know if we said it up top, but spoiler alert, we're going to go deep in. We're going to talk all about the movie and anything MCU, all theories and whatnot. But it's one of those things where we kind of already know what's going on with the character. We know this has already happened in the past in the chronological timeline. So we do already know via the end game film, she is gone. This character is dead and not coming back. So it was kind of a little bittersweet movie to watch. But I mean, I got to say, for me, David Harbour took the whole film to another level. Mm-hmm. What did you think, Joey? Did you feel like there was a standout character in the movie?
Well, I gotta say, I am so happy that the MCU is back in theaters. It's great. It was great to go watch the Marvel logo build on screen in front of me. Yeah, I agree. Definitely middle of the road film. Standout character for me was Florence Pugh, though. She was stellar. I thought she was funny. I thought that she just brought a whole new energy to this film. In fact, what I really appreciated about this film, and I like David Harbour as well. Rachel Weisz did a great job. Not my favorite in this film, but she's great. So, Rachel, if you see this somehow, sorry. But I mean, overall, though, the film did a great job, like making me care about these characters in this family that, this is like our first introduction to them as a family and as a bunch of characters. And by the end of it, I was very invested in them. So they did a great job writing the characters and creating a really strong arc for them. Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff is a fun character. If I say Wanda Maximoff, they're just really similar. So I apologize ahead of time. I keep wanting to replace those names, but Romanoff is she's a fun character, and it was nice to see some of her story. My biggest issue with this movie, and I just felt it the whole time, was like, it was just filler. Like this was supposed to launch phase four, and it just kind of felt like we went back to a moment where we kind of already knew what was going to happen at the end. It was fun little Easter eggs that we got in there that basically led right into Infinity War. But at the end of the day, like it just didn't really do much to me, for me to push the MCU forward. Loki, which we just came off of, I mean, every episode our jaws were dropped on something amazing that pushed the narrative forward, that pushed phase four forward. We went back in time for Loki, and then we came and it caught us up to the present with that. For Black Widow, I mean, it's a standalone film happening in a very narrative format, very linear format. It just didn't do much for me besides the post-credit scenes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was actually supposed to be our first introduction to her in the post-credit scene, and then, but in reality, we had already met her once. It was Valentina. Is that her name?
Val, yeah.
And so, it to me, it was a great. I agree with Joe. It's a great filler. It explained why all of a sudden Black Widow's hair was blonde in Infinity War after being red for, the entire MCU.
Yeah.
And it gave some nods to the Thunderbolts because you got to see, Thunderbolt Ross really taking a turn for the feeble looking and the sickly. And I think his next step is going to be injecting himself with the super soldier serum and becoming Red Hulk. We've already been seeing nods throughout the MCU to the Thunderbolts, and we know that's an upcoming property. So I thought that was a really nice subtle nod. But I agree. I mean, David Harbour, some people say I look like him, so I have a kinship to him. But I thought that he was phenomenal. I thought that Florence Pugh was outstanding. Rachel Weisz, I would agree, her accent was a little bit spotty, to say the least. There were times when she had the Russian accent, and then there were times when she didn't. And but overall, it was an extremely entertaining movie.
Yes,
I put it on par with the first Thor, and it was entertaining. It was like Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I mean, Falcon and Winter Soldier. It was set in an earthly time. It wasn't cosmic.
What I've been calling the grounded MCU.
The grounded MCU, as opposed to the cosmic or the space,
right?
All the other directions. But it was entertaining.
It's just so tough. It's just so tough because after Civil War, Marvel, the MCU got huge and just got bigger and bigger, and Loki made it even larger. And then I kind of had to go back and like watch something that just felt so like boxed in. And I love Natasha Romanoff as a character. I just kind of I wish we had I just wonder why. Like why would they give us this story in the middle of what they're trying to establish moving forward without, I mean, besides all, people wanting a solo movie from her. I know it's been in the works for a while. It was rumored for a while, but from what Feige says, like the story just was never there. And then all of a sudden it was there, but it was a prequel, or it was like a back. So like, why would you do that right now? And it doesn't move the narrative like forward. Grayson, any theories from you on why they would make this move at this moment?
I think it's an odd thing. And like you talk about Feige saying there's not a story there. I think to me, this is the part that kind of jumped out to me as I'm watching the movie. It was like when I'm getting near the end of the movie, and like there's always like parts in movies that you're like, I have to suspend my disbelief, right? But the plot point at the end, as we're in this like flying Russian, command center, if you will. And then the command center gets like starts to break and starts to fall down out of the sky, right? Okay, so we've kind of seen this plot already take place in like multiple other Marvel franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And Avengers 2, same situation's happening. Ultron's got the city up and they're trying to move people around, and this thing's falling out of the sky. We've got to save people. In Captain America, Winter Soldier, same situation. We've got S.H.I.E.L.D. falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
We've got to, in Captain America, Avengers 1, they've got to get Tony in the turbine to keep spinning it around. It's like we've kind of done this people falling out of the sky, big structure in the sky thing so many times that I'm like, okay, well, like I can suspend my disbelief, but like 4 times, like that's kind of, if we're going back to like why I think they might have dropped it at this moment, I think they want to I think they're trying to appease all fans, which you got to try to do with a massive interconnected franchise like what Marvel's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And this keeps, like you said, Joey, the grounded MCU, gives those fans something to hang on to and enjoy with Natasha Romanoff. I think it's like we all said, it's good. It's just not as expansive as what we're wanting. And I think at the end of the day, what I would have liked to see is something where we get to see what kind of more of what happens when Cap returns the Infinity Stones and what happens when he goes back to that. Does he get to see Natasha one last time? How does that process work? And maybe the story just never came about there. But I think that we can always talk about the what ifs and the what we would have liked to have seen. And that's one thing I would have liked to have seen. And even in a post-credit scene is like Cap returning that stone and getting to have a final conversation maybe, or something like that would have been really rewarding. The tombstone post-credit scene was very touching, very sweet. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have any theories. What about you, Jeremy?
Well, so the director actually said that she shot a second end credit scene at the tombstone when Yelena does the long whistle and all of a sudden you hear the long whistle from Natasha
I
back.
thought we'd hear it. I thought we'd hear it again. She whistled, and I thought for sure Natasha would come back. That's what I was waiting on.
Because here's why: if you think back to Endgame, Red Skull talks about a soul for a soul. So of course you sacrifice a soul to get the soul stone. So when you return the soul, would the previous soul who's been sacrificed for that soul stone be returned? So the thought process is when Cap returned the soul stone, Natasha actually came back. That was the only way she could come back. She couldn't come back with a snap. She had to come back via the returning of the soul stone. So that's what that end credit scene would have led to. But I think what they're doing is they're tying Natasha's story off really neatly. And, they're going to let Yelena really carry that Black Widow moniker, that, assassin feel forward. And of course, when she sees Hawkeye on the tablet, in the end, we've got to anticipate and assume that she's showing up in the Hawkeye series.
Oh, I hope so. I need some more Yelena in my life. She's a great addition to the MCU. I think she's really fun. Jeremy, I love what you brought. I think we talked about it maybe like a little bit before about, if Cap returned to the Soul Stone, then what happens, soul for a soul. And I'm very much on the side that like Natasha Romanoff is back somewhere in the MCU. She's alive, but we have to play that out. We have to role play that, right? She comes back. She's in the wrong timeline. She's back in what year is it? Whatever year Guardians of the Galaxy is, right? So because her and Hawkeye went back with Nebula and Rhodey. So if she came back, she would come back to that moment in theory. But
yes.
So we could, of course with Loki. So, and that brings the other thought, Loki breaking the multiverse wide open, does that open the opportunity for Natasha to come back? We had a great film that we really grew to, I think, really love Natasha Romanoff even more. She showed a lot of heart. It really showed us like what brought her from her turn in Civil War to being this, I think finding her full potential in Infinity War and then ultimately in Endgame. But like we got to see in the middle, like her actually fulfilling all that, which we hadn't gotten to see for her before. So I do understand that aspect. I just kind of need more of it now, but she's dead. So like it's so anticlimactic because I'm like, you're supposed to be dead. So are you going to bring her back, Marvel? Are you going to bring her back? Is she going to show up in Secret Wars? Is she with Nick Fury up on the Skrull ship? Right? Where is she? Hulk said it at the end of Endgame. I've been looking and I can't find them. We don't really know who he's talking about. We think he's talking about Romanoff. He could be talking about somebody else, but he could be talking about Wanda Maximoff for all we know, because she disappeared. We figure out where she goes in her show, but
yeah, it was interesting. We got our first nod to a mutant in the MCU. He wasn't referred to as a mutant, but the giant man that Red Guardian broke his wrist in prison.
Yeah, that was
Ursa.
I couldn't watch.
And he turns into a bear. His mutation is that. So, it's subtle nods here and there. Like I said, I knew that they were going to sprinkle in mutants like sprinkles on a cupcake. One here, one there, until we're full on ready for the glory that will be mutants and the X-Men in the MCU. I only pray that Hugh Jackman has some small, role to play, and I'd love to see him versus the Hulk. I'm sorry, I digress.
Speaking of Easter eggs, I did just a little digging, and I loved the play on the vest that Yelena has, and she gives it to Romanoff at the end. We see her with the short blonde hair, and she's wearing the vest. Y'all know that she's wearing that same outfit in Infinity War, right? It's fantastic. I had to go back.
That myself, yeah.
I was just, filmmakers don't do anything, on accident. So I was like, why are they putting so much emphasis on this vest? Have we seen it before? And I was like, I bet she's wearing it in Infinity War. And sure enough, she's wearing the same thing. So that's always fun to kind of add those back in and kind of, see some of those, you get the nod at the very beginning when she's holding the blonde hair dye. You kind of know that's where it's going and stuff like that, which is always fun. Overall, I think it was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't seen Black Widow, go see it. Go see it in theaters. You can watch it on Disney Plus, with Premiere Access, but go see it in theaters. It's fun. Theaters are open. Popcorn is calling.
Yes,
absolutely. So what else do we have in the nerdyverse that we'd like to discuss in this episode? Anybody have anything that we want to talk about?
Well, I want to return back to Loki. I know we had our season finale last week, but I went back and I watched it again after being inspired by some other folks that have dug deeper on the show than we have. And I went back and watched the opening intro. And we didn't talk about this in the last episode, but we all heard all of the nods, all the one-liners from previous Marvel films, from previous Marvel properties. It went from the Marvel Studios logo all the way through to when we finally, catch back up with Sylvie and Loki at the palace. And so I want to just bring it up. And I don't know if this was intentional, if this was just style, I don't know. But we hear all of these things, all of these phase 1 through 3 one-liners happening throughout the entire opening of the show, of the episode. And as we pull out of the universe, we kind of pull out of a black hole, and then we kind of see this second black hole, and we come out of one and we go into the other one. And it's in that one when we start hearing things like a one-liner from Sylvie, and then we hear a one-liner from Vision from WandaVision. And all of a sudden you realize, hold up, is everything that's happening with our Loki and He Who Remains and the sacred timeline around the palace, around the fortress, is all that happening in a completely separate universe from phase 1 through 3 that we just came off of? And now my mind's kind of like blowing a little bit. It's kind of going like, hold on. Everything we just watched, all of Loki, did it just take place in a completely different universe than everything that we came up to? So I want to get y'all's opinion on it.
Jeremy?
Well, I don't think so. I think that's just I personally, I think that's the director's way of separating what was with now what is. But I'm also a huge proponent of believing that everything after Captain America, the first Avenger, is a spur timeline. So everything that we saw happen in the MCU actually is not had not happened on the original timeline. And Joey, you and I have had this discussion multiple times because of when Cap went back. There are too many question marks for me as to what would have happened in the original timeline had certain things not transpired. I don't know, but I don't think that everything that we saw from WandaVision through Falcon Winter Soldier into Loki, I don't think that is existing in a separate universe. I think it's just I think it was the director's way of expanding visually where we're at. I don't know though. I'm not Kevin Feige.
I definitely did. When I watched it the first time, I didn't think that. When I watched it the second time, I definitely thought that it was an easy way for us to identify like how time, it kept showing like obviously a black hole, right? Time is a circle. And then you got like a couple of those like quotes and one-liners from people that were like actual like famous people quotes that were like, is time linear, and like all these questions that kind of goes around with that kind of stuff. And it just made me think like the director is trying to tell me like you need to start looking at time in a different way than what you're seeing it as. Because then when we go to the palace and you see like the circle around, like we talked about in our episode, how that is representing the actual physical timeline, and we can see it break off and create branches. That was what I was thinking. I never looked at it through the lens of like, now these are literally two different universes next to each other, and then we're kind of getting a window into that. So, but maybe that is what they were trying to say. I love the potential and possibility that kind of brings up too.
One cool video I saw some guy do is he lined up the beginning of WandaVision's finale with the beginning of the Loki finale and played them forward. Obviously, WandaVision was half as long, but the moment that Wanda becomes Scarlet Witch, where she fully powers up, is the moment the timeline starts splintering to the second in each of the shows. I have no idea what validity there is to that. If it's just happy coincidence in the MCU, I lean towards no. But the second that she powers up is the second that they pass the threshold that He Who Remains, refers to, and he doesn't know what's going to happen, and that's when it begins splintering.
It's true. He does just kind of feel it all of a sudden. Nothing really. Yeah. We're never explained as to what's actually spurred the end of the timeline on. It could be then. I definitely. Here's where I'm kind of at with it all. Jeremy, I was very much against your theory of everything after the first Avenger being a different timeline, mostly because I would feel like it's all for naught for some reason at that time. I guess now I'm just kind of like, I don't know. My mind is blown with too many things. We got multiverses on top of multiverses. We got timelines splintering, black holes on top of black holes, and all I hope, and this is all I hope for what is to come, is that we don't we don't get the cop out that that it's a dream cop out, right? It's all for naught. It's not, it doesn't matter. I just can't handle something if it just ends up not mattering. That's kind of why Black Widow feels so obsolete to me, is because like it almost feels like it doesn't matter anymore, because her story just ends in a couple, well, in her time, 5-6 years, but still just kind of, we know it's done unless they're going to bring her back. But I feel like if they were going to do that, there would have been some like second post-credit scene that was like that, maybe we come back to Fury up on the ship and all of a sudden you hear I thought you were dead kind of thing, and it's her voice in the background, and it's ambiguous, but you can tell it's Romanoff, and that's it. But we didn't get that, and Marvel's really holding, more so than ever before, they're holding their cards really tight and really keeping them close to the chest. And I really cannot, it will be a really upsetting time if 15, 20 years down the road, I realized that, oh man, well, I guess Captain America screwed up this whole thing when he dove himself into the ice.
No, so Michael, have I told you the theory?
Hit me with it.
So basically, so Captain America, first Avenger happens, 1945-ish, 44, 45. Everything, okay, and then he comes back in Endgame to a post time, after he's gone in the ice, he comes back and he's with Peggy. From that point on, because that was the last thing he did, he fixed all the other branches, but from that point on forward, it's a branched timeline, because he was never supposed to come back there. And so everything that happened after that point in the MCU, I believe, is an alternate timeline, opposed to if he never went back to be with Peggy, because at that point there would have been two Captain Americas existing in the MCU at any given time.
Right.
So everything that happened, every movie that happened after that, is existing in this parallel timeline. And so we don't really know what happened on the main timeline, because Cap went back and splintered it off. And then, it just continued because he had to be with Peggy, which is why I still believe in episode 1 of Loki, that was Peggy Carter in the background. And, that they were trying to rectify that. So maybe Loki rectifies that theory, but I am a firm believer that everything that happened in the MCU after First Avenger is part of an alternate timeline.
Grayson, I'll give you my rebuttal.
Hit me with it.
Okay. I don't believe that. While I'm still very confused and mind blown by the multiverses, I still am going to stay strong that everything that we've seen from, I guess, up until Loki, at least, everything has been in the timeline that we've seen it in. Captain America takes all of the stones back. Yes. And he stays with Peggy. Yes. And he shows up years later with the shield. Yes. How does he get the shield? I don't know. Okay. Stark said that it was just a prototype, but we know he could have gotten it from the Wakandans. Okay. Let's just be honest. They could have forced him a new shield. I don't know. But here's my belief. Captain America went back, stayed with Peggy. Peggy said in Winter Soldier that she was married and she had a family and stuff, but we never find out who she was married to. They never show a picture of them together, nothing. She supposedly has some type of memory loss, probably some type of Alzheimer's, and she doesn't quite recognize him, Captain America. I believe that old Cap's been there the whole time. He's been in the background. And in Civil War, when Peggy Carter's her coffin is being carried to, I almost said sarcophagus like she's a pharaoh. Her coffin's being carried. You can see Captain America carrying it, Steve Rogers, but there's also an older guy in the very back of the pallbearers. And there's been the theory and rumor that is old Cap helping carry the coffin up. I would like to believe that is what happened.
I completely agree that's what happened. But I think the entire thing is an alternate timeline from what really happened. I am not saying old Cap. I'm not saying the Cap wasn't in the entire MCU as old man and young man.
But I think it was all in the same timeline, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because Cap returned the stones.
But he went to Peggy afterwards.
Okay, your first Avenger theory could still be true, but I don't know. I just can't. I can't.
Listen, if we learned anything from Loki, is that any time that a character or a person veers off their predetermined course, they create a vector and they create a nexus event and it creates a branch.
Well, no, they didn't say it creates a nexus event. They said not every branch was a nexus event.
Oh, right? Then I'm mistaken. I'm sorry. I thought they were.
We could be wrong. Leave a note in the comments if we're wrong. But I thought it was just like sometimes they allow people to veer off the course, but as long as it doesn't affect the sacred timeline too much.
I don't know. Kevin Feige needs to tell me because I want to know.
Sylvie hung out in end of time places the whole for most of her life, and it didn't matter.
Because no matter what they did there, it would still reset to the proper timeline, the sacred timeline.
Right. Okay. I don't
know.
Interesting
theory, boys. I'm interested to see what they do. It's not canon until it's down in the movie. You know what I mean?
It's true. It's true.
We see it in the theater. It's not real. The only thing I will say that I saw that I do, I think I tossed it at you guys, but they did reveal some set photos of Michael Keaton on set on Batman, and they did reveal the Batcave as well as the Batmobile, which it is the traditional Batmobile from Tim Burton's Batman and Batman Returns. So it's interesting to see from the Flash film. Yeah. The Batman we're getting is the traditional OG Batman from Tim Burton era.
Now, do we know, is this movie going to be called Flashpoint? Is it going to be called The Flash? Do we have a title yet?
I don't think we have a title. They just keep referring to it as like the Flash movie. Yeah.
I'm sure that's what the DC will call it.
I imagine it's just going to be Flash or The Flash, but they're going to utilize the Flashpoint timeline or the Flashpoint storyline for it.
Yeah.
Yes. And Grayson, you said before that that Michael Keaton is coming back to play Bruce Wayne.
He is Bruce
Wayne.
Not
Thomas Wayne, like many people thought.
He was credited as Bruce Wayne in the movie. So
which would change that Flashpoint story just a little bit.
They sure did. Now, I mean, they could have some creative writing and let it be Bruce, and then we see him as Thomas as well, maybe we see a couple of different timelines in there. Who knows? But he's credited right now as Bruce Wayne.
So. DC has a lot of work ahead of them.
They got a lot of work to do. It seems like a lot of work. They get a little too anxious and just here's everything we have. And it's like 2 movies when it should have been spread out over 10. And yeah, if Loki shows and all the Disney Plus shows have shown us one thing, it's that if you take these stories and you really stretch them out and make them a 6-hour, 8-hour, 10-hour show instead of a 2-hour movie, it can be a lot more satisfying and it can be a lot more rewarding to watch and experience. And it just isn't that way sometimes when you try to smash a big story and try to get it down to 2 hours. It just does not translate.
That's what Snyder's Justice League showed us. is when given 4 hours of runtime, over 4 hours, he was
Yeah.
able to flesh out the story so much more cohesively and coherently than the 2 hour crap fest that was the theatrical version. So DC at this point, they don't need to compete with the MCU. They just need to do their own thing because there is no catching what Marvel has done. So they just need to get off Batman. Like, let the man rest. Like, I know Batman's like central to to DC's universe, Batman and Superman, but I don't know how many more times they can just like reiterate him. And because now there's the Batman, and then there's Ben Affleck's I think going to be Batman in the Flash movie, but then there's also the Batman series coming to HBO Max that is different. And I'm
There's
just like,
also there's also Titans on HBO Max, which I haven't watched. I saw a trailer for it, and I'm like, this show looks pretty good. Have y'all watched Titans yet?
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, and I think that character is not Batman. I think he's Nightwing. I could be wrong though. I don't really know
Yeah,
much
he's
about
Nightwing.
the Titans show. I am here for Batman. I love the Batman character. I don't
Sure.
care. I don't care how many times. It's like Spider-Man. They can reinvent. I mean, I hope they don't reinvent Spider-Man anymore because I love Tom Holland so much. But it's like Spider-Man. That reinvent Batman as many times as you want because it's always fun for me. They
Well,
need to do a little better with the villains. I think the Batman villains. I'm hoping the Batman with Robert Pattinson like really just sets a new bar. I think because Nolan did such a phenomenal job with the Batman trilogy that he created that the bar is still set pretty high for me. So I hope the Batman is new and wonderful. I thought we'd get that with Batfleck, but just didn't do it. Just didn't do it for me.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, it seems like on that one. But
Yeah.
hopefully with the new Batman, we're gonna get the Penguin a little bit, which is kind of exciting. And of course we're gonna get a little Riddler. So it's some untouched property a little bit for a few films. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. I mean, the trailer was pretty much everything they had shot up until that point due to the pandemic. So we've got a little waiting on us. But I'm still holding out. I thought we'd get the Spider-Man trailer like within the next week, but
I don't know what they're waiting on.
It is July the 20th, and I don't have a Spider-Man trailer.
We're less than 6 months away from.
I need one.
What are they waiting on? They're really holding it.
Yes.
This is going to be. I think this is going to be almost as surprising. I just saw a small video about this as Michael Scott coming back for the Office for the Office finale. So much so, I don't know if y'all know this. I just saw a little video behind the scenes at the table read for the finale episode. They had given all of Michael's lines to Creed. So at the table read, everybody thought that Creed was going to be the one to say like, it's like I had kids and they all grew up and married each other. That was Creed reading that at the table read. And they all laughed at it, thinking that was funny. But the surprise was Michael was coming back, and that was going to happen.
Funny.
So in non-comic news, just real quick, I read that the Netflix creator for the Fear Street series, which if you haven't watched those on Netflix, they're actually really good. It's based on R.L. Stein's young adult books.
Grayson, have you watched Fear Street yet?
Haven't yet. No, is it good?
It's really good.
Okay.
It's surprisingly good. So it's a 3 trilogy. Obviously, it's like a 3 movie trilogy, and they all build on each other. But he was talking about wanting to create a horror a horror shared universe akin to the MCU for Netflix, which I loved the idea of everything being interconnected. And so yeah,
that's a great idea. I mean, it's
that.
already been done way better than Fear Street ever was with the Conjuring universe.
I mean, sort of, but really the only movies that connect directly to Conjuring are the 3 Conjuring movies and Annabelle.
Absolutely not.
And The Nun.
No.
How does La Llorona
so you have
connect up?
Okay.
Hold on.
Tangent for a minute. You have Conjuring, Conjuring 2, Conjuring 3. From those, you have Annabelle Creation, Annabelle Comes Home, and then you have Curse of La Llorona, which has the pastor from Annabelle in it. So there's the connection. You have The Nun, and now they're producing more.
I'm just saying, Like that all is central around one couple. Like it's all centered. It's all centered around the Warrens. I'm
You got to
talking
have
about like
a universe centered around something.
sure. Well, okay. Well, what's the MCU centered around?
Superheroes, Marvel superheroes.
That is not a. That's different than a couple.
But like what Jeremy's trying to say is like a universe that like where Freddy Krueger and Jason, but also like Annabelle, like all these things can get connected, I think is what Jeremy's trying to say.
I
Look,
think that'd be really.
I'm
cool.
fine with it. I'm fine with it.
It'd be fun.
Grayson,
You know,
I think you need to watch Fear Street, and then we can have a 3-episode arc of Nerdy South where we
I can
talk
watch
about each Fear Street movie. Because I will say, I watched all 3 of them. My only thought is they did a great job connecting 3 movies. That's all I'm going to say on that. Right
you know, and just for our fans, because they probably don't know this, I am a giant scaredy cat. I'll sleep with every light in the house on after watching one scary movie.
It's not scary.
So I'll watch.
It's campy slasher.
I'll let you know my ranking of how scary it is.
Yes, do it. You could probably binge them in a night.
Okay.
Very entertaining. Let's put it that way.
One night, and I'm sleeping with all the lights on.
Right.
Well, our next thing on the Nerdy South is definitely going to be diving into the Marvel What If series on Disney Plus. So if you've enjoyed this episode and our Loki series episode recaps, definitely make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Tickle the bell just a little bit so you can be notified when new content comes out. And be on the lookout for Marvel's What If episode recaps coming forward. And then, of course, as more Marvel movies come out, the Eternals, No Way Home, we'll be diving, especially we'll be doing a special episode devoted exclusively to the No Way Home trailer whenever it drops. So
that's right. And if Grayson gets on his game, we'll even do a little 3-episode arc on Fear Street.
Absolutely.
I
heard randomly the other day that they're remaking The Haunting of Hill House. Anyway, that's the Haunting of the House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, okay.
Y'all remember that 1999 remake of a 1950s movie?
Yes. Yeah.
I think they're remaking it again. Anyway, there's a lot of fun nerdy stuff coming out. It's a great time.
That's the horror movie genre's bread and butter is remakes.
I love it though. It's great.
But we've had a blast. We will see you guys next time. Be sure to comment on the comment section. Tell us some topics that you'd love us to discuss or other nerdy things happening in the vast nerdverse. And we will see you guys next time.
See you next time.
See ya.